Well, welcome. This is Kent Adams. Welcome to Experts at EWU. And I'm pleased to have as my guest from EWU live today, the Provost of EWU, David May. Dr. David May, how are you today?
I'm doing very well, although I could use a little more sunshine in my life. We've taken a
Yes,
turn
I
for the
think we
worse.
all could. And actually, it would be good for us, wouldn't it? Based on everything
Yes, it
I've
would.
heard. Yeah, get outside and grab some of those rays and so forth.
Yes, indeed.
One of the questions I have is your job and so forth. EWU is really the first university in our state to say that you're going to do something a little different come this fall. And that unlike some of the others that are really, and not all the others have decided one way or the other definitely at this point, and I get that. Right now, you can't predict positively anything more than a day or two at one time. But you're going to do online and other kinds of instructions for the most part, rather than the traditional in-classroom this fall. How did you get to that point to make that kind of decision? What went into that?
So it certainly wasn't an easy decision to make, and we had a lot of conversations. Where it started is really talking to the experts that we have on our faculty about infectious disease, epidemiology. We have a great group of faculty who've been advising the leadership team throughout this and even before it became a pandemic. And so the guiding principle for all of the decisions that we're making right now is to put health and safety first.
Okay.
We have to protect our students, our faculty, our staff. And so that was where we started. And of course, we're listening very carefully to the public health district. We're listening to the state and federal guidance as well in making these decisions. In making these decisions in the middle of a pandemic and in the time frames that we have to make it just adds so much pressure to it to make these decisions over Zoom rather than being able to sit down and have those conversations. But it was a lot of conversation, weighing pros and cons, but keeping that idea of the health and safety of our campus community, but also our larger communities. Students coming into and off of campus in the numbers that we would be talking about creates a real uncertainty around the possibility of public health.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got to be an agonizing decision because part of that college university experience is the interaction before and during and after classes and all of that. And I can only imagine the struggle that you and your team went through to kind of put that off to the side and go at it in an alternative way. What is it going to look like come this fall? You will have students on campus like before in terms of residents and so forth. Will there be some classroom activities at times? Will there be football?
Yes.
I mean, let's get to the serious stuff, right?
Let me circle back around to football in just a second.
Yeah, no.
We are working really hard with our faculty to continue the evolution of those virtual classes that they had to put up really, really quickly in a 3-week period. This is not an insult to the faculty, but they were not the best online learning environments simply because of the time frame.
Right.
And so we're continuing to work with faculty to enhance those online experiences for students, including that ability to interact with faculty and with other students. We really thought going into this spring quarter, when we had to make the transition very quickly, that students would want asynchronous class time so that they didn't have to be in a class at 10 a.m., that they would want the flexibility. And we did a large survey of all of our students, and what we found out is that they enjoy the flexibility, but they miss that interaction more.
Yeah.
And so we are going to be, it's going to be online for most classes. It's an online first model, but with maximum flexibility. And what that means is that any class that can be taught really, really effectively online is going to be online. There are some types of instruction, some types of labs, for instance, our Doctor of Physical Therapy students. To be licensed, they have to be hands-on with the patient.
Right.
And so it's really impossible to do that remotely right now. And so we will have some exceptions to that online reality, and we'll be doing some things, labs primarily, but maybe some things in music that can't be done effectively in a virtual or online environment. But we're really trying to limit those because, again, we're keeping this idea of public health and safety at the forefront. Because a reality that many of our faculty fall into some of these vulnerable categories, and they're actually very pleased that they're not going to be in a face-to-face reality. We also have students who have underlying health conditions, for instance, or who are in other vulnerable populations. And so the feedback initially, I think, was a little bit of shock.
Right.
That we said it first, that we were out there making that bold statement, but it allows us a much longer time frame to plan, to make all of these things that I've just been talking about a better online environment, to make that a reality. So all of the classes are going to be scheduled synchronously, as though they were meeting in a regular 10-week quarter. Your class meets at 10, your class meets at 11, your class meets at 1. Even though what happens at 9 o'clock might be different than what would happen in a regular classroom, but students are going to be able to plan. They're going to know when they need to be, where they need to be, and they're going to have that opportunity for that more personal connection that they've told us they're missing.
Okay, can't let you go without talking about football.
I wish that I had a firm answer on football. We are, we're waiting on the NCAA, and we're waiting on the Big Sky to tell us what they think is happening. At one point, I think last week, it's hard to remember what day it is, let alone when all of these things happen. The days are kind of running together a little bit.
Welcome to our world right now, right? It is Tuesday,
briefly,
I think, as we're doing this, right?
Let me check my Bob Ross calendar.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
It is Tuesday. At one point last week, the NCAA said that if schools were not going to be face-to-face, that they wouldn't have football. And then we saw what happened in California with the CS system, and I think that's going to cause a lot of people to rethink some of those statements that were made even a week ago. Because as you point out, it's impossible to predict with any certainty what's going to happen next week. I'm working on this afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and you're absolutely right. What we know now is good for about another 30 seconds, and then the world changes around us. In fact, as we came on to record this and put this out, we just learned that Inslee, our governor, has said we can go to phase 2 in the Spokane area. And so I haven't even had a chance to look at the full report, and I'm sure you haven't either. So we're going to learn a lot more right after this. But welcome to a changing world and so forth. I'm going to ask a question with what are you doing right now with some of your students? How are you helping students today on campus for the summer session, for preparing for the fall? There's a lot more than just preparing for the classes and online classes. You've got how many students usually a semester or a quarter do you have there?
9,000.
Okay. Yeah, that's quite a few students to be overlooking and helping and so forth. Each of them have a different story and a different need. So how are you helping your 9,000 students?
Well, we've already done a lot in this initial transition, and a lot of it related to technology and access. We very quickly realized that there's a great differential ability for our students to access the technology they need to be successful in an online environment or virtual environment. And so we have loaned out many laptops. We actually purchased a large number of laptops and have loaned them out to students essentially indefinitely. We have worked with our IT department to set up drive-in Wi-Fi hotspots in some of our parking lots for students who don't have
I saw that.
sufficient.
I think that's a terrific idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal.
No.
We know that, but we're doing what we can to help our students.
Right.
And so we've had to adapt very quickly as the governor's orders have changed. And so another thing that we realized very quickly is that we were sometimes confusing digital natives, which our students are. They've had a touch screen their entire life, but being a digital native doesn't mean you're an online learner. And so just because you're on Snapchat or Facebook or whatever, Instagram, I think is the new thing, according to my daughter, that doesn't mean you know how to learn in an online environment, that you're comfortable with recorded lectures and all of the things that our students are going through. And so we're continuing to help educate our students on how to be successful in an online environment, and also as a way of helping our students, helping our faculty understand.
I was going to say a lot of them, this is new to them because they're used to speaking in front of and with students. And now they're speaking to a plastic lens or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was in the classroom for about 16 or 17 of my 21 years here at Eastern. And so I also taught online, and that transition is an interesting transition for faculty to make, because what we think we're doing isn't what students think they're getting. And so it becomes a necessary conversation that we have to have right now.
Right.
And so we're doing that.
One of the things on the agenda for EWU is the Catalyst building on East Sprague downtown. What happens this fall with that?
So that will be an area, it's on track to open in the fall. It will be opening with many fewer students than we thought were going to be there, as will our main campus in Cheney and our partner campus on the WSU side of the bridge. But the South Landing is scheduled to be open. That is probably an area where we will be making some exceptions to the online requirement. For instance, the robotics lab. It's really hard to do robotics from home, and so we'll be making some exceptions around. Those are the kinds of exceptions we'll be making. Sure. But the other part of the online first is that it allows us to make those exceptions, because it allows us to bring a few students onto campus and really minimize the potential negative public health impact. It just gives us a lot more space to work with.
Right.
And so, yeah, the Catalyst is on track. We're really excited about it. It's an amazing partnership that we have with McKinstry and Avista, and they've been incredible partners to work through this with. But we're scheduled to open.
Good. You've had some students who have left campus after the spring time and so forth, that are probably not totally sure what their future is, if they're going to graduate and all of that. I hear EWU is doing a pretty good job of re-engaging them and keeping track and keeping in touch with them. What are some of the things that you're doing?
Well, there are a couple different areas of campus that are really, really invested in that. And one is our Center for Advising and Retention. That's our main advising group for undergraduate education. And we have some software tools that allow us to reach out to very specific and targeted groups, even by text message, because, of course, they don't read emails. Emails are what you and I use. Students today do text messaging and Snapchat.
Yeah, I know.
So we're reaching out through CAR, Center for Advising and Retention. We're also reaching out through our marketing and communications arm on social media. We had a social media basically take over of Eastern social media. We had students connecting with students. We had students reaching out to students who weren't registered for the fall, for instance, who hadn't engaged in registration, and talk to them. And that connection is really important. And of course, our student services team over in student affairs has been amazing. They have a care team that whenever a student looks like they're struggling with anything, whether it's big or small, they reach out to them personally, call them up and reach out and help.
Because you can really become and feel isolated right now with all that's been going on. I mean, I don't know how many people I talk to. Gosh, Kent, I look forward to sitting across the table and having a cup of coffee with you and those kinds of things, and it keeps coming up in conversations and so forth, and I think we all miss that. Our guest has been Provost Dr. David May. Thank you for this. Very interesting. I'm going to ask you to make a promise to come back in September, and when things start up again and start rolling, and give us an update on how things are going, because you'll certainly know this September, October, where the holes are, because there will be. In all of this, we all find them daily, don't we? But it sounds
yes, we do.
Like you guys are really, really on top of it, and proud to have Eastern here in the Spokane-Cheney area. So thank you very much for being our guest today.
I'll come back anytime. Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching
Have a great afternoon
at EWU.